out into the savage white of soul.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Quotable history.
What's awesome about this show is that there is nearly an endless supply of quotes out there that have historic significance. Words have significant power, and many historical figures were so historic not only because of what they did, but because of their famous words. World leaders like FDR, who talked us through the Great Depression, and Lincoln, who helped us get through the Civil War through his speeches and his eloquence, and many others were not only influential because of their powerful deeds, but also were almost more influential because of the words that they left behind. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address totally changed the reason for fighting the Civil War by centering the focus of the war on how all men were created equal after one of the most brutal battles in American history. But sometimes there are quotes out there that really trick you. People attribute them to famous people, but those people never actually said them. So I thought it'd be fun today to talk about some quotes that are really famous, but there's little evidence that who they are attributed to actually said them. One of the most famous examples of this is "Let them eat cake." Many attribute this to Marie Antoinette during the food shortages of the French Revolution. However, there's actually little evidence to support that she said this. In fact, the quote, if you actually translate it directly into English, is "let them eat brioche." But it doesn't change the point of what the people were trying to say. This really was a reiteration of an idea made from various legends dating back to the 16th century about global leadership and national leadership being out of touch. Another famous quote is one of the most famous quotes often attributed to Gandhi, the leader of the Indian independence movement, which is, "Be the change you want to see in the world." I encourage you to look up the sourcing for that, because Gandhi actually never said that. The quote he said that was closest to it was in a 1913 newspaper where he said, "We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change." It's not that this quote, "Be the change that you want to see in the world," doesn't carry truth or you can't find value in it. It's just we never can say that Gandhi actually said that because he most likely didn't. Another memorable quote that is actually kind of correct, but because the context is often left out of it, it actually should largely be considered incorrect, is "money is the root of all evil," which many say is in the Bible. Now, if you actually look at what that says, it says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." Look it up in 1 Timothy 6:10. And as you can see, that bit of context, "for the love of," totally changes the meaning of what that verse is trying to say. Finally, for us Americans, one of the most famous quotes that was never said in history was, "Cannot tell a lie, I cut down the cherry tree." George Washington is attributed with saying that as a young boy. But in case you didn't know, that was totally made up. It was to sort of mythologize him and show that he was super honest from his youth. It was to show that he was almost like a demigod. And it was a story that was really created pretty shortly after his death. Now, if someone had told me they had cut down a cherry tree that took years to grow, I don't care if you didn't lie. I would be pissed I didn't have my cherry tree that took a long freaking time to grow. I don't have a cherry tree anymore, dang it. So whether you lie about it or not, I don't have a cherry tree. But anyway, I digress. But there are so many more quotes that we could look at that are often attributed to people, and sometimes even like in Gandhi's case, that's like his most famous quote that he's known for. And there's no evidence that he actually said it. Some of these are just different phrases of things that were originally said, which can vary the meaning slightly. And when I look at quotes and look for quotes, a lot of times we don't actually have a record of, especially ancient sources, saying the quote other than a biographer saying that they said it. And to that, you have to give some veracity because, again, the biographer is saying that they said it, and then it can be corroborated by other evidence. So some of these quotes, you have that, and then some of it is just a summation of something that they said, but sometimes we actually do have the original quote, and there are some people who want to simplify the phrasing, but it can vary the meaning slightly when they do that. Some of these quotes are important life lessons that people try to attribute to a historical figure to add veracity to the claim, but we can't really attribute that to the person because the person never said that. And it also takes away from really the power and the context of the quote. And then there are some that are just blatant falsehoods. And especially when it comes to religious figures like Jesus or the Apostle Paul, or ideas where it really would change the nature of the historical event if they had said that, it can really make a big difference on how people view the individual involved and maybe even so much as how they view the ramifications for their own life. On this show, to the best of my abilities, and again, sometimes the sourcing can be scarce, right? I mean, William Shakespeare was an example of that. The sourcing can sometimes be scarce in terms of what he said outside of his plays. I go to great lengths to make sure that what was said can be sourced correctly, that multiple people can corroborate that they said that, or that a reliable biographer is attributed to having had them say that, and that the information on who said it is accurate. So when you're quoting a person, and when we're saying that people said things, make sure that they actually said it. Make sure you know the idea and the context in which they were stating that idea so you can understand what they were truly trying to say. I'm Will Henry, and thank you for listening to this very special episode. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Quotable History. If you liked today's episode, please share it with a friend and make sure to subscribe and please leave a review. For whoever leaves a review on this podcast, I will do a raffle and you will get to choose one quote that we will analyze here on Quotable History. So that would help us out a lot. And again, if you like this show, share it with a friend. Make sure to follow us on our socials. All the links are in the description below. I want to thank my wife Rachel for, again, her editing and also just her love and support throughout this entire process. We hope that you enjoy this week's episode of Quotable History. And until next time, have a great week.